Having a little shout out here for emergency preparedness basketball on May 6th. So just a lot of community education management. So we follow fuel management, which is education management of the forested areas around communities, as well as fuel reduction, which is more kind of grasses and lower growing shrubs. So we're starting doing that in and around residents as well as city script. Legislation and planning, we've got a subcommittee that's looking at some parts of policy development. Like probably going up, right? Or I'm on the next one. Okay. So yeah, we can put that with policy development. For development considerations. Oh, I really skipped ahead. Sorry. Okay, I'll just go through this now.
Sorry, everyone. It's actually really hard to hear. I'm not sure where the mic is in comparison to the presenter, but it's definitely really hard to hear for everyone online. Sorry, and I didn't catch on what slide where you're on at the moment.
I'm jumping around, sorry.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to check. I was like, wait a minute. I thought I missed something. Thank you.
I was flipping a couple pages here. So yeah, I guess maybe just going back a step and then I'll continue on this here. Our collaborative is made a number of different organizations in the community. So the primary organizations that are involved are the First Nation and the Village of Lytton. So they're the two sort of organizations who have put forward joint proposal for the funding that our Forest Cooperative operates under. But we also have participants from Lytton Rescue, TNRD, BC Wildfire Service, BC Emergency Health Services, and just interested community members as well too. So it's a very comprehensive. So let's say we got there collaboratively together. So on these 7 fire smart disciplines that I started to get into that I will now get back to. But I guess I just want to also say that we've got a number of our fire smart collaborative members here. So I don't know if you guys want to put your hand up and to show who participates in our fire smart. No question. I was just asking if they're involved in the Fire Smart Collaborative. Yeah. So yeah, interagency cooperation is another one of the disciplines, and that's pulling together the different organizations involved in emergency response, Fire Smart initiatives, just emergency sort of preparedness as a whole. That's what that line item aims to do. Cross training, so looking at cross training between fire departments and say BC Wildfire Service or other response organizations. So there's the ability to provide training to the fire departments and work on just sort of collaborating a bit more on response, emergency response. And emergency planning. So under this line item, one of the eligible funding pieces is the ability for the community to purchase structural protection unit equipment. So that includes purchasing trailers, so structural protection trailer, as well as equipment, hoses, pumps, fittings, all that kind of thing to go into the trailer to support structural protection during our response. So the Preparedness Fire Smart Collaborative has purchased a trailer and sort of phase 1 equipment. So we are starting to get the equipment into the trailer in hopes of eventually equipping a complete type 2 trailer. So that's part of the emergency plan. There's other pieces for that too. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of what else is happening for it. Oh yes, home ignition focus assessments. So yeah, we we've got a number of people trained in the community to be able to go out and assess homes, which identifies potential risks. And those people work with homeowners to identify sort of ways that those risks can be reduced. And some are easy reductions, some are not so easy. But the ignition zone assessments, it helps just identify those risks so people can start implementing measures to reduce risk. What do we do? Anybody else from the committee can speak here.
I'm not sure what the status is of the management assistance program, the homeowners.
The grant.
Oh,
The grant. We used up all that money.
Well, I guess this is kind of the other piece of where we're at now with our Fire Smart program. So I don't know if everybody's kind of heard, but Fire Smart programming provincially is being cut next year. So we've had a 2-year program. And we're coming, I think, June 27th is our end of our year 2. So we've asked for a year extension to be able to extend some of our programs that we do still have remaining funding for. So it's just now a matter of the group coming together and kind of looking at priorities as to where the remaining funding we really want to sort of direct it to the community. So it could be rebates. We didn't have a great uptake with the rebates last year. It was brand new for us too. It was kind of brand new for the community. So it was a bit clunky, but unfortunately, it's not going to be continuing sort of past where we're at now. So as far as I know,
Better funding.
yeah, unless we get more funding. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Tanya. Real just a smidge snapshot of the Fire Smart Collaborative. So, and it's something that I'm really proud of to be a part of over the years. It's really been a tremendous opportunity to get various stakeholders in the same room to talk about the one thing that we have in common, right? And one thing that we all need to sort of educate people, be prepared. So throughout the years, we'll host a couple of different preparedness sessions. So a spring preparedness session and a fall sort of preparedness debrief session. So at those evenings, we'll invite various folks to come and speak and present, offer up different information packages and whatnot. And then also to offer help all the door prizes. So it's a really good meal and good venue for everybody in the community to come together. And this year for our spring preparedness session, we're actually doing something a little bit different. We're calling it the Emergency Expo. So we're just going through the planning stage and putting this all together. So I think May 6th is an important date for everybody to come out and see what Lytton and some of the surrounding organizations have to offer and show and demonstrate some of the various equipment, introduce people to different folks. So if you have the chance to come out, I think we're going from 10 o'clock to about 2 o'clock at the battlefield, just up on Highway 12 there. So please come out and join us. Any further questions for Tanya at this point?
What are the boundaries of this program for the region? Like if something happens, say you're out at 15 mile up the Fraser River, would there be a response when the equipment goes there? Or where is it cut off?
For the SPU trailer?
Well, for the program generally, like I'm trying to visualize how are the individual people going to benefit from this, or how have they benefited from this? And how far would the boundaries of this benefit potentially be? Like, would it benefit, like we live so by farmers, would it benefit us? And how would it benefit us?
The two applicants for Lytton First Nation and the Village of Lytton. So the kind of boundaries were the municipal boundaries and Lytton First Nation. So that's how it was kind of defined as the applicants. So the TNRD also has, which you're in, a Fire Smart program.
Sure.
So there's other organizations providing those types of services as well too, so it's kind of jurisdictional as well. The Fire Smart program.
Okay, so for what you're describing, this would be within the village boundaries and LFN boundaries. First Nations land in the area, and that's it.
As far as some of the deliverables, right? But obviously, you know, we have a number of stakeholders that do come to the table, so it's more of like a unified command type of structure. So we all know what everybody's doing, right? So I mean, even BC Emergency Health Services, they come and sit at the table as well, just so that they have that education, that knowledge of what programming, what's available out there. So it's more of a preparedness, educational component, but we do have the rebate program, you know, and then we're able to access funds for the SBU unit. But that being said, you know, as a community, we respond to whoever's calling the area. But I wouldn't restrict it generally, right? So,
What about the TNRD? Is there any way that we can get help from the TNRD? I've got 50 acres. There's no way that I can fire protect my place. That's not, no way. What do I do?
At our last meeting, and previously last year, heard something about TNRT has a program. But it's different, has different criteria. A rebate program, and I'm not really clear on the details. I just was told that that program is in effect, and I think you can get $1,000 if you spend 3,000. I think it's like a third or something. TNR will reimburse, but it's only $1,000.
So if I hired somebody to remove some trees, TNRD would reimburse me?
Well, I'm not sure what their criteria is. I would say go to their website, because for instance, in town, when we were doing a rebate, you had to have a home assessment first.
Oh, yeah.
And then that home assessment identified key priority areas that needed to be improved. And then that funding went towards achieving those goals. So, the treasurer, or the website should be able to give you some information. But I do believe it's still in.
It's kind of frustrating though when you see them bringing up stuff on reserve. And private property, you know, they're kind of just left hanging. Even with acreage. But I just thought I'd bring that up.
I mean, we ran into the same thing over at Girls Court where there was no assistance for doing any kind of burning. I mean, we just practically tried to figure out, you know, how much we can burn off at a time and just and make sure we got fire protection stuff there, and it just worked out a little bit of time. But I mean, it is true that some of these chunks of private property, wherever they are, whether it's railway or whether it's, you know, Joe Blow with a piece of private property, there isn't the same level of management as there is on, you know, maybe within this valley here or some of the First Nation land, stuff like that. So, you know, it is something that I think could be better addressed than it is right now. But, you know, the TNRD is a very big regional district with a lot of different, you know, to stretch those funds across.
I can't see how it could be addressed really. We'd have to have manpower around and
But if you can minimize the risk around your primary residence.
you know, I try.
Help a little bit, $1,000.
But there's some stuff that I can't have, just like a whole bunch of wishes.
I'm with you, I've got the same scenario, but
If that ever lit up, the house would be gone.
You keep your sprinklers running and all green.
That's what I did when the fire came through. I had 4 sprinklers, one of each corner of the house. That's what saved the house.
very good points, right? And, you know, potentially like there were a number of hazard ignition zone, like assessors trained through the Fire Smart Collaborative. So at least, you know, potentially, you know, we might be able to help with that initial assessment so that you know what type of risk that you're up against, right? And as a community working together, yeah, we can come up with some ideas. So thanks for the good point. Right.
Just to be clear, the collaboration is a collaboration between LFN and the benefit person.
As far as applicants for we're responsible for implementing the work plan that was developed and that we put forward as an application. A lot of the activities in there are community wide.
Yeah.
We don't stop people at the door and say you're not elephant, you're not, like our doors are always open for the seasonal preparedness.
They're brought in the conversation of invitations to.
Yeah, we've invited Sheppa, we've invited Kanaka, and Kanaka's, we have a representative that sits at the table, but they didn't put an application with us. They have their own separate program, right? Like you guys have their own program. But definitely we'd like to invite more communities to join. Very good. Thank you, Tonya. And next I'd like to introduce Brian Baxter to talk a bit about some of the Village of Lytton initiatives.
Great. So I guess I start with Wildfire Protection Recovery Plan, which was done by BA Blackwell in 2022. I've read it a couple times, but quite honestly haven't got it memorized, so I'm going to read the notes. A localized risk assessment and action plan to improve wildfire resiliency and recovery, updates and replaces the previous 2016 Community Wildfire Protection Plan, accounts for changes and takes advantage of the newest Community Wildfire Planning Framework, discusses strategies to prevent future catastrophes from occurring, and has strong focus on the 7 fire smart disciplines 3, including interagency collaboration. To use an acronym. This plan has its roots in Community Wildfire Protection Plan, Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan framework. So on that, we've actually met as a group with Fire Smart, Fire Rescue, BC Wildfire, reviewed the plans, seen what we've accomplished and what we need to move forward on. Village of Lytton Emergency Response and Recovery Plan of 2025. Provide a comprehensive program of emergency management by coordinating response of council, officers, and employees of the Village of Lytton, volunteer services and external agencies, respond to natural and man-made hazards with the goal of preserving life, property, the local economy, and the environment in a comprehensive approach using preparedness, mitigation, response, recovery, all in a manner that will ensure continuity of government and civic services, guides the operations, organizations, responsibilities, and coordinations necessary to provide for the effective response and recovery from major emergencies or disasters in the jurisdictional area of the village, does not address emergencies that are normally handled at the scene by the appropriate first responding agencies or incidents occurring in neighboring communities. On the last one, we're kind of working as a collaborative group, whether it be with the Fire Smart, with Lytton Fire Rescue, emergency programs. We're currently in discussions about how we can support each other, communicate with each other, and work together in the event of an emergency. The Emergency Response and Recovery Plan 2025, Emergency Response Guidelines, Plan Activation and Termination, Notification Procedures, Response Goals, Personal Accountability, Telecommunications, Personal and Facility Identification, Documentation, Emergency Personal Respite and Rehabilitation, Declaring state of local and or provincial emergency. Some of the hazards that could occur: aircraft incidents, atmospheric hazards, severe weather, earthquakes, fire, wildland interface, flood, dangerous goods, hazardous materials, pandemics, long-term power interruptions, transportation disaster, i.e. railway, highway, water and supply disruption. Another report was done, the Lytton Fire Rescue Review of 2022. The goal of this review was to provide a roadmap regarding how the department can be fully restored to ensure that it can provide effective fire and other emergency responses for the village and the wider service area, which includes 2 First Nations. The review recommendations focus on the following: regulatory matters, occupational health and safety, service and aid agreements, fire underwriters, emergency program department, organizational structure, department organizational structure, financial review, fire prevention, fire hall, fire apparatus, operational guidelines, training and qualifications, response analysts. So along with collaboration, response analyst is something that's ongoing and always being looked at. Post wildfire geohazard risk assessment, Lytton Creek Fire 2021. So it was before my time with the village. A detailed post wildfire natural hazard risk assessment for elements at the risk identified by the ministry as potentially at risk of post-wildfire geohazard impacts. Wildfires in steep mountainous terrains often followed by a temporary period of increased geohazard activity for approximately 3 to 5 years, and in some cases up to 10 years. The following areas were prioritized by the province: Nikomin River 1A tributary, Nikomin River Prox downstream of Nikomin Falls, drainage above Nikomin River IR1, Tom Creek and Devils Creek and Lytton Creek. I don't know. Thanks for asking. Not quite sure where Devils Creek is either. Where Tom Creek is?
Over there somewhere.
I will follow it up. Not sure how late it is. The Lytton Symposium of May 2023 was a village initiative. Climate is impacting us all. Climate is impacting all of us, regardless of where we live. The intent of Lytton Building Symposium was to engage, share, listen, and learn. Include emergency and resiliency related speakers and information tables. A proposed building bylaw amendments of 2022 and 2023. In 2022, council gave initial readings and adopted an amendment to a building amendment bylaw that would introduce fire resilient building standards. The building standards branch for the province would not approve the bylaw. The village does currently not have fire resilient requirements in their building bylaw. However, Pacifican has a non-repayable grant for this purpose. Other village initiatives is Next Gen 911, which in 2025 I'll be working on, along with Maggie and Caroline in the planning department. Modernization of the 911 networks and infrastructure across Canada. Federal mandated transition of the emergency communications network to an internet protocol-based technology will enable important improvements to public safety, including better 911 caller location information, real-time texting, streaming, audio and video, and new ways to direct calls to services other than police, fire, and ambulance, such as mental health support. In 2023, the village received the basic amount and is currently looking at improving the mapping, GIS, and then addressing, and we'll find out what Tom Creek gets through that. Enhanced communication channels, pinpoint location accuracy, enhanced system resiliency, seamless interoperability. Wow.
Oh, wow.
What time you said?
No, that's
What was it, Kathy? Proactive public safety, inclusiveness. Nicotton Territory Initiatives, Lytton First Nations Emergency Management. Emergency Management Department staff organize and facilitate emergency preparedness initiatives. Help the nation resolve emergencies quickly, safely, and efficiently. Ensure members impacted by disasters are properly supported. Might still go?
Did I go too far?
Yeah, numbers on the page.
I know, right? Yeah. You're good, you're good. Awesome. So from what Brian spoke to, there's a number of different reports, assessments and whatnot that were done. And I think really we've got a real asset here, Brian, who's helping to, develop and build out the fire and rescue department, as well as, some of the villages initiatives there. So really great work. And Brian did mention too that the fire department is looking for recruitment, always looking to recruit and train folks. So if you know anybody that's willing and able, just get a hold of somebody in the village office, or if you see Brian, I think he has some literature over here that he can share.
So on the table, we got some postcards made up that talk about what Lytton Fire Rescue entails and how you can get involved. Feel free to grab one. We also have a couple papers here for ESS. So the Village of Lytton has an ESS trailer, which will be at the May 6th event. And I hope to be able to cook up some dehydrated food to see how it tastes before we're in an emergency. See which flavors we like and which we don't like. So there's a couple different options. We currently don't have an ESS program in place. Yellow paper would be the ESS program, which the province regulates, operates, and administers, which is also a volunteer organization. The blue is what I would compare to more like a neighborhood watch program. It's something that we could create and administer and run ourselves within the community. Both are great ideas, both serve the same purpose, helping people in needs for about 72 hours. I'd strongly encourage people to take it, discuss it, contact on the information's on the bottom of the sheet. Whatever the community wants is what we'll work towards. Right. And it'll also be at, like I said, the May 6th event. So,
Brian, Vermont.
I have a question about all of the reports here, and I vaguely remember them coming out to be quite a long time ago. But has there been formal after action review completed? Like whether it's Greenpeace and Wildfire or other organizations that have informed these plans?
With respective agencies, yes. And I can specifically talk to BC Wildfire because during the Lytton Creek wildfire event, I was part of the incident management team as community liaison. They did conduct an after action review as they do for each incident that does occur. This one was quite comprehensive. There were a lot of lessons learned and a lot of different things that were developed within the management teams and how they respond. So we are seeing not the report itself. Yeah. That's an internal debriefing type of document, helps guide their strategic plan.
But none of that, what they've learned in their response, was that any of it shared with the community? So
Not as far as I know, not directly.
yeah.
Obviously implemented consecutive years afterwards.
Yeah.
And how they're, running things and managing things now, but no, nothing formal. Good, and Tom Creek is actually 16 kilometers east of Lytton. Can you Google it? It's on Google. Presentation.
oh, I
can't find it. Yeah. Very good. So, and thanks for Brian for touching base on First Nations Emergency Management Program. So we've been very fortunate to have emergency management coordinator now. And we've developed a very comprehensive 5-year work plan for the organization, just so that we keep that one goal in mind. Really, we don't want to lose another home and livelihood for our members. So that's kind of been a focus of that program, and just building capacity each year with equipment and personnel and training staff and whatnot, so that they can come together and respond to an emergency. So. On the next one, we're just going to touch briefly on a few communities in the surrounding area, just for some basic awareness. So on the next slide, we have Nicomen Band. So they've they've done a lot of forest field management throughout their neck of the woods, and working with BC Wildfire, and it's supposed to be First Nations Emergency Services Society, so FNS. It's really a growing organization, sort of a delegated agency on behalf of First Nations. They supply everything from response officers to having folks that sit in on your behalf in emergency operation centers. They'll send out field mitigation crews to your community to help reduce fuels if your home seems to be in the path of a wildfire. Also, they have structure protection trailers that they deploy onto homes in First Nation communities. Next slide, we'll talk a little bit about CISCA. So CISCA Band, they have an ongoing fire smart funding that assists with education planning, cross training, similar to the collaborative. And this process enhances the operation of their emergency operations through communications equipment. So on March 27th, 2025, it marked the day Disaster Aid Canada and the Rotary Club of Steveston, Richmond. They unveiled the prototype fire trailer and donated it to the CISCA First Nation communities. They have added capacity to allow them to get water and be able to respond to immediate needs of the wildfire. Scapa.
Hey.
They also have one of the fire trailers, the rugged mobile unit. It's equipped with a heavy duty frame and running gear designed for off-road conditions. 2,000, liter, 2,000 liter water storage tank and a high capacity pump. And it's fitted with fire hoses and piping, alternate intake hoses for drawing water out of different sources. The trailers were also sent to CISCA, Kanaka, Lytton First Nation, and Botani. So a group up there, the TNRD from Area I. So fire smart funding for education planning and development considerations. They're working on interagency cooperation, emergency planning, and cross training. Next, Kanaka Band. So they work to strengthen community safety, coordinate emergency response. They're maintaining readiness and support for households during critical events such as fires, floods, and landslides, power outages, and extreme weather. Their team collaborates with the chief and council, regional partners, emergency agencies to build a resilient community that can act quickly, stay informed, and remain safe during emergencies. So they're taking part in emergency planning and preparedness, emergency alerts and communication, response coordination, recovery and support services, and infrastructure and risk management. I know firsthand that Kanaka is a fire smart community. Posted, they've got signs up there. They've put a tremendous amount of effort, like Lytton itself, into field management activities and helping to safeguard community. One other thing that really stands out about Kanaka is that they actually installed a raw water supply line that goes to some of their standpipes for fire hoses. So they do have a bit of a reservoir that they could access in the time of emergency. So I think during the fire that came out of North Bend a few years ago, then they really it threatened that community, and they were able to deploy and utilize some of their raw water line to set up structure protection. So, that's good.
We see that in the non-potable water supply.
Yeah, definitely, and it's part of the planning in the region. Just they're really not so much infrastructure in the ground, but where to access sump stations so that you can draw water into water tenders or water containers, things like that. But, yeah. The next slide, we're going to talk a bit about the regional district and some of the stuff that they have in play. So they do have an interactive emergency map that's live on their website, so you can view the locations of different evacuation alerts and orders, and find other location-based emergency information. They have some ESS support services that are available. So they identify where reception centers are and how to access ESS. They provide emergency links and resources. So they on their official web pages during the emergency, it's just getting that information out there. Public meetings, so you can view all of their public meetings and information meetings during the wildfire or flood emergencies. And returning home, so you can find and access information from the TNRD on crucial information if you're returning home following a wildfire or a flood event. And also wildfire preparedness. So they provide information about what to do before, during, and after wildfire, and with links to Prepare BC and Fire Smart resources on their website. It's excellent. Everybody is coming up with the times. Now on to the federal government. So Pacifican. They announced in 2022, the federal government opened Pacifican's Homeowner Resilient Rebuild Program for applications on May 31st, 2023. So it's a $6 million program. Pacifican will provide top-up grants to eligible Lytton homeowners who wish to rebuild their home to fire resilient and net zero status. All eligible homeowners accepted in the program could receive a grant of $10,000 towards a fire resilient rebuild. So I don't know exactly where they are, but I do know there are a few homes and homeowners that rebuilt in Lytton that did take advantage of this program. We have one in the room?
No, it's two.
Oh, two. Okay.
I would say, do you know more than two? No.
Yeah.
So it's why more people didn't take advantage of that program.
Oh, wow. Red two.
Did it cost more to implement the program than it did the actual?
Perhaps.
Oh, that's true.
I tried to get a pocket and get reimbursed, so that was it.
Federal standards. Okay, just go.
You can find for 318 windows.
They're tracking every dollar repeatedly.
Oh, it says right here. So Pacifican has indicated that 4 homes within the village properties have received the non-repayable grant fire resiliency. So I'm really proud of those homeowners doing that extra mile, and going to, I think, step code 3 or step code 4 type of thing, where they're really having a hard look at the building materials that they're constructing their homes with, and put their best foot forward, and taking some lessons learned. So
I think
Hands up
part of
to
the
those.
challenge was having the money up front when you're already stretched
yes.
and then waiting for the returns. There was a lot of challenges.
They changed that, they have changed it.
There were a lot of
They
challenges.
asked that when we didn't do the Legion didn't do that grant, but we did $20,000 from that. And they now ask you whether you want the money up front, or can you purchase it and be reimbursed? I purchased and then was reimbursed, and it was the fastest way of getting away from that. Because it was so, the application itself, the amount of meetings, the information you had to supply them with, and like the word you put in, so you had to change the words and back again. It took months and months and months. They went from November the 7th, when we finally got it in, until the end of February to approve it. And then wanted us to spend it by March 31st.
I think the big program is different than the
They're-
residents.
They're ultimately the same program, the same people.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the focus for me, right,
Yeah.
it's different. It's in-
No, it is very, the $20,000 is very different than the
Right.
other program, for sure.
Yeah, so,
But
So various different programs within Pacifican and our community has, tried to take advantage and navigate the process, and I'm just happy and glad to hear that they've extended till the end of December with the opportunities with Pacifican. Yeah.
Money's not around there.
Yeah.
Very good. Do I have any questions in around the slides that were just presented? We go into some of the workbook findings, so.
I'm kind of blind, they've got my back to the screen, but I'm just curious if you know, or within this group. TNRD used to have the buoyant alert.
Yeah.
And last year I got a buoyant alert, but it was issued by Lytton First Nation, I believe.
Yeah.
So is that the only organization that has buoyant alert at this point, or do all the bands have it, or?
There's a portion of them that are utilizing it now. I don't know exactly which. No, it's felt.
I think.
Yeah, sure.
I asked that very similar question to Jim McDonald when he was here. I had a meeting with Jim because some of the village residents were quite concerned when their buoyant alerts went off, and it wasn't pertaining to the village direction. So Jim said that the village of Lytton doesn't have a subscription to buoyant alert, but Lytton First Nation does, but I don't understand, like for the other bands, like you're right.
Mhm.
But it's a subscription fee that I think is substantial.
But it's good, I mean, fire travels so fast. I think that's what Fire Smart sort of highlights, is that there's no boundaries in fire movement.
Yeah, no, but
That's why
to pay for the alert, though, the village of Lytton, he said the village of Lytton didn't make that payment to keep that, so we would have to depend on our situation being the same.
Just on the, there's actually two apps, I guess you would call them right now. There's Alertable and there's Buoyant. And it is subscription based, and I don't know if the village had a subscription pre-fire. Something to consider and think about is fire is only one emergency.
I think.
Alertable is through like BC Rail, like that's where one of the sessions I had. So I'm not, we have been looking at it. I'm not 100% certain that you would get the same notification of, say, a rail derailment with Buoyant as you would with Alertable. So I've been looking into these things, and that's the point. Hope to recommend the best course of action.
Can we put that on for Carolyn to be putting into the OCP as an action?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my understanding is our buoyant alert is through TNRB. We're under their subscription, the village of Lytton, so we don't have our own.
Relying on them.
Can we check on?
We do have,
check
it
on
went
that?
down.
Did you get that? No, we didn't get that, so could we? Guys, could we double check that? That if that happened, because we didn't get that last year, okay, we didn't get those alerts.
Okay.
I guess an explanation of Lytton First Nation's point of like we didn't do it reserve by reserve. We just put a big boundary around all the reserves. And that's why people who have been signed up to the TNRD or like the TNRD buoyant. If you have a pin in the middle of our area, you're gonna get that notification too. And there is the ability to opt out if you don't want to receive our notification, but you have to go into buoyant and actually do it, like click off, you don't want to. But I mean, the thought was if we are having an emergency, TNRD neighbors need to.
Right, I think Diane and Jen.
What I was going to say about this is all of these app-based systems are only so good. Like your app gets out of date, your phone is on do not disturb, whatever it is, there's a whole list of things that will prevent this from working. And, I think sometimes the old simple method of a large, air raid siren or bell or something is maybe the most foolproof method of getting that worked out, because all of the technology can fail you. I mean, we saw them when Lytton burned, the whole TELUS CO burned up within 20 minutes of that. And then you don't get anything, no cell service, nothing. So I don't know. I think having the old analog backup methods for the minimal cost that it represents is something that's worthwhile having where possible.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, Lytton had the siren south of us here for probably close to 100 years.
Right.
And it had many fires, and it was a system that was foolproof. The only thing that was a downside, it was on telephone poles, and Halloween or whatever, kids would.
Not very often.
Not very often, but that was a foolproof system, and I agree 100%. That is something that we should think about, because that siren went all the way up onto IR 18 and beyond.
On both the one down, there's 2 stations.
I think in particular in the village that would work. For the reserves in the outlying area, the buoyant
More difficult, yeah.
response, it's absolutely, it's makes you aware anyway, because where I sit on the west side, I've had people on the top side call me up and say, do you have a fire going? Because there's smoke all around you, and I have no idea there's any smoke in my neighborhood. So you've got a lot of blind spots in the canyon. That's why that buoyant alert can be good, but in town for sure, a siren would be good, because the day of the fire, I was across the river and I couldn't hear any sirens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think technology has its place. I love technology. I'm very much into it, but I also see its limitations, and having an old analog backup method is a really good thing to have.
Even a crank one.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Jason, that we had a real quick comment, when we were on our school, I guess it was, I wanna say. I'm sorry, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he did a speech at like an anniversary here, and he mentioned the sirens, and the whole crowd were, oh, JP, thank you, yeah, and he was just being right here, and it was the biggest sort of community cheer I've heard, I think, since the fire, so people are definitely pro siren.
The other thing to consider, 3 horn blasts repeated in emergency. So if somebody's blasting a car horn 3 times repeated, it means emergency. So if you're trying to get people out of your community,
So that would be well to advertise that.
it makes sense, understand that. That's already.
Or the Canucks one. Nothing.
Just be repeated, 3 breaks, 3 breaks, 3 breaks. That's a celebration of emergency.
Are we contributing now, Jason, for the protection statements?
Absolutely. So I was just gonna mention, this is the type of dialogue that we see, right? And it just goes to show how you can't depend on one thing. Right? And yeah, so it's all beneficial, right?
Who's next?
You're almost the same time, so I know whichever. Yeah.
No, it's really obvious, I'll think this already, but just to say that the lit fire would have occurred in the nighttime. One would have found their phone out, no one would know what's going on, but if somebody was able to get that alarm going. You know, that was maybe a huge difference in that fire was in the night. Of course, we would have lost the file.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point.
Excuse me, just on the buoyant alert, because you can register with your address. And just I'm looking at mine, it puts me with Lytton First Nations and TNRD. And it says with TNRD, I will get general information, and LFN will be community general notices, roadway advisories, severe outage notices. And yet they're both listed because of my address.
Yeah, because you're in the area. So those are 2 subscribers.
Basically, yeah.
You're good?
Yeah, that's what I, with Daniel, point there about communication, that with the emergency, we still need to have internet and cell phone. Somehow a backup plan, like even one day when there was an event going on in the village and if there wasn't any power, it was very difficult to have communication, so. I don't know what the plan is to, as for the OCP and for the village. Nothing but it would sure benefit a whole area.
I do have a couple comments on that, but Jason maybe wants to go back to that.
Absolutely. As we start planning for the new fire hall and emergency operations center, I anticipate a lot of those components could be, whoa. Okay. Everybody see this now? A lot of those things can be incorporated into the design. So I'd anticipate, backup generator, you're having like Skylink internet service, that type of stuff where, you're not dependent on the main grid, whether it's fiber optic or the power grid itself. So I definitely want to go through those redundancies and keep hammering on those and and making sure people are as resilient as, we possibly can.
I'll just add one or two comments on it. As far as internet goes, we work to get a lot of our facilities with solar backup as well, because one of the big things has been these extended grid outages when there is a fire event where we'll have several weeks with no power or, fairly long duration. And most backup systems are not equipped to deal with those long outages. But coincidentally, it also lines up typically with good sunshine. And so having solar backup is a great way of keeping stuff operational. And then having redundant routing. So like in Lytton here, if we have connections that are broken down here, we can bring in that service from Boston or from Lillooet, either way, bringing it in from our connections elsewhere. And then the third thing I would say is we're working right now on getting a cellular-based system that could work as a backup layer for communication. Because that was one of the big take-homes from 2021 is coordinating stuff without cell phone service. And everybody's got their own different radio channels and stuff that don't necessarily overlap with each other. And so that becomes a real problematic thing, is just coordinating between, say, Village of Lytton and stuff, or Lytton First Nation or volunteers on West Side. Getting that communication between groups becomes a real problem if you don't have cell service. And so figure out how we could help with better interagency communication, whether that's getting a VHF repeater here or a cellular-based system that is a backup layer. I think is something that's very critical. We've been seeing what we can do on that, have several test systems that are operational right now.
But having said that, are you still saying that citizens won't have the communication they're used to? What I took away from the fire was not being prepared to deal with, to live without communication for a few days.
So that is a good point. So there's two aspects to that. I mean, if you have, and the most important is that people responding involved in that event have good communication. Like that's absolutely essential. And I think that there was many lessons learned in 2021 as far as that happening. As far as your average citizen that stayed behind or is hasn't evacuated or whatnot, having communication is critical. And so having an arrangement where, a whole bunch of SIM cards could easily be passed out, they still have access to service that way. Having your Wi-Fi ready house still working. Those are things that, are practical things we try to do, or have some locations where people could come to and check in with communication. Can't fix all the problems, especially if there's really substantial damage, but you try to make things as many different avenues as possible, right?
And there is a lot of cell phones now that, like, I've upgraded our phone to have emergency, it goes right to satellite if I lose cell. I can be driving between here and Lillooet and it just goes to satellite for texting automatically and I don't have to switch anything. So it only allows texting. I think that might be iPhones 14 and up, but it only allows texting, but you still have the ability to communicate. So that
And direct to cell is coming mainstream, and that's where your phone, unmodified cell phone, will communicate with the satellite.
So that's what I'm saying. I just drive and it just, if I lose cell service, it just goes right to satellite automatically.
And so that's being rolled out much more broadly. So even if you have an older phone or something like that, it'll still connect to that system. And that's something that is being rolled out by Rogers and TELUS and Bell, pretty much like this year and partly next year. And that will mean like normal phone calls, texting, everything, just like it was with cellular service.
So texting only now, but telephone
Yes.
coming.
That's correct.
That would be that'd be helpful.
Well, there's always 911. Had a little fire one last year, with the lunch, came back out, something rolled down the hill, and the whole hillside was started. Called 911, they were there within 15 minutes, and the rallies, 2 fire trucks out, and 6 people went down that bank and managed to put that fire out. So we were very fortunate that we got the rallies.
911.
That's all I think, call 911, they asked what's your problem, fire, and they got in touch with them. I guess they got in touch with them.
So like, as far as the OCP goes and like a plan if there was a disaster in this town, one thing I think I wasn't in town in 2021, but trying to track people. Very challenging, speaking to the residents of having a meeting
like centralized communication areas, so like if all cell services out, if everything else is out, you know, you can go to, maybe it's not a muster station, but like a some where this is where you're gonna go check in. Maybe not Facebook, which just seems to be where everyone goes, but like some go-to person, like whether it's a location that Brian's at or someone's at that can tell you that your dad's okay or that he's fine to the middle of that.
If there was an ESS, that's what they were.
Yeah.
But yes, I couldn't see your anyways. But if there was an ESS, that's good.
Yeah, and you never know where the muster station is, you don't know where the emergency is.
And that's last time I was in scattered in 5 different locations, so. For what?
There's lots of questions. So tell me more about, if I have to evacuate me personally or all my friends, can we get through IR 18 and will the gates be open? And is there a plan for that? Because that's the way I got open.
Not the barricade over it.
See, yeah, like tell me more about that. I look at that and it just kind of go like, oh. Panic attack, fix.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, it definitely in times of emergency, yes, you're gonna be able to get through there. It was recognized that during 2021, that was the main way to get out of Lytton. Predominant winds, fires from that. What they are looking at is having the road status changed from a truck route to local traffic. So that's the big thing. That's what's happening right now. So we don't want semis coming down in through the residential area.
They can make my house.
Highway 12 is where Highway 12 is.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, many different factors and rationale why. But yeah, once construction's complete, we are looking to reopen.
I'm just saying that as today, would somebody be there to sniff and open those gates so people could exit through that gate?
Oh, yeah, the residents would be.
Yeah.
So most folks are on site now, back home.
Can you stand on local traffic? Do you mean like transportation local traffic or is?
Passenger cars, buses,
Yeah.
like fifth wheel, speed trains, logging trucks. Yeah.
All three boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't want
One
some.
of those arcade yellow bars, short enough to go through. Yeah. No trucks coming through that.
Good.
I think that congratulations to the village for really working on a generator for the power backup for the water. I think that should be noted somewhere in the OCP that was dealt with, and I think that there's a really good return for that. Diana, are they making more of generators up there, or is that just that project's fully finished?
For the generator up at the treatment plant? That project.
One operation.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was such a big deal for at 2021. And to have that addressed, I think that the village needs to congratulate themselves somehow through the OCP.
So is that included in the generators for well 2 and 3 then as well, or just the treatment plant?
Well, the village doesn't look after well number 3, because that's
Sure,
on
yeah.
First Nation, right? So that's the First Nation's responsibility. And there's a generator at well number 2, and it's currently under assessment whether or not it is functioning properly for the size of the generator for the well.
Sure, yeah, I just know it was used in 2021, right after the fire, so I was curious.
Yeah.
What this does.
Just actually just
Some people don't need a pump this burning out on it because it was being run 24 hours a day for so long. That's where that was.
well,
But it's very beneficial to have generator connection there.
Yeah.
Very good dialogue, very good conversation, and I encourage you, there's a whole stack of treats back there for dessert and it's a little sugary snack before. We're getting down the last 15 minutes of our allotted time. Of course, we can stay longer for conversation and questions and whatnot. I do have a few more slides that I just want to hammer through, and they're primarily focused on the workbook findings from the that were done a few months ago. So we just want to make sure that people are aware, you know, your suggestions, your comments and things like that were heard and documented and move forward into this process. And so I'll just go over a few of them here that are kind of focused on emergency preparedness. So question 5 and 6 talk about the vision. So 5 traits that are most important to highlight in vision. So resilience and strength. So people really, you know, recognize that we need to work on those components. New community issues. So one respondent indicated it was their top priority and 5 others as up 5th. Yeah. Question 9. So some current OCP economic objectives. So ensuring that the costs associated with new developments do not place excessive financial burdens on the municipality and the taxpayers. So that was highly relevant. So 25 votes for that. Question 10 and 11. So new OCP economic objectives. So become a provincial learning center for climate resilience and recovery. A lot of people, you know, thought that was really important. Question 13 and 14. So new social objectives. So encouraging and informing relationships with the regional district and provincial agencies. So really pulling them in closer and saying, yeah, let's collaborate and work together. So improve partnerships and collaboration among the greater community. Question 16 and 17. So some new environmental objectives. So proactively manage and make natural areas resilient to a changing climate. Protecting water quantity in streams and groundwater. That was highly relevant. To consider opportunities to reduce the impacts of extreme climate. So for example, cooling stations, wood protection, flood protection. That was highly relevant. More to Jennifer's point. So exploring non-potable water for firefighting. So having access to irrigation sources and other suitable uses. Now that was highly relevant. Some of the added environmental objectives. So fire smart throughout the village. Yearly fire drills, educating villagers. Idea. Wildfire mitigation and preparedness. Increase the fire halls to protect community, redirect water and road runoff to gardens and farmland. So more trees, keeping the environment cooler. For windbreak, increase fuel management. Explore long-term water security system, which draws from the Thompson. Ensure that buildings are climate conscious and are built with extreme heat and fire resiliency. So some more objectives to facilitate volunteer opportunities for community projects involving eco stewardship, green enhancement, prioritizing climate change, develop a comprehensive fire protection plan for the village. This is essential for future survival of Lytton. So these are some quotes from comments. The plan would divide town into 5 or so zones, independent of one another, establishing sprinklers on the roof of every structure, have a large gravity pull water storage tanks filled with water during the spring rush or runoff. A fire in any zone instantly triggers sprinklers in all the zones, and this would be a prototype for others. So I think I remember a previous session, Judith, you spoke to some of this. The sprinklers on homes and what.
That's right.
That's you. Okay.
3 times.
We heard you, Bertie. Yeah.
Well, just a sec. Logan Lake, that's the Logan Lake, that was integral to their Fire Smart program. And I think that should be given very, very serious consideration for implementing in our town. If you look at the history of fires in our town, it's going to happen again. Yep. Question is, how smart were we sitting around the table that we looked into the future
Mhm.
and anticipated what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I really think that is the most important thing, including having good fighter they can roll the lake as well. And they did do some clearing in the area. But those are the three things. So
I think very key to that though is the comment about gravity feed reservoirs, because you
absolutely.
get your power knocked out, and what we saw with Lytton was sprinklers got turned on across the board. Everybody went to turn the sprinkler on and then left town because they're hoping to save their house or whatever. And that meant that within like 15 to 20 minutes, all the reservoirs were emptied out, and there wasn't even water for the fire trucks to run pumping stuff.
100%. That's
Yeah.
part of the program. And you divide the town into zones as well. So whatever zone the fire starts in, that is the zone that is triggered by the gravity fed water. And so that, you don't blanket the whole town, you go specific to the zone that requires the water at that specific time. It's not it's not rocket science, but it could be very, very important. And if we want to be trendsetters, I think we should seriously think about that concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Everybody can.
What up, Prodigy Wildfire. So there are a number of companies that are coming up in the industry.
Yeah.
That are providing permanently mounted sprinkler structure protection sprinklers. And a lot of them work with temperature and heat sensors that will activate, if there is, it's a certain degree. So I mean, it was in the middle of summer.
Sprinkler system that has been incorporated into that system.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know of any other places.
Temperature sensitivity turned on their own.
Mine has to be manually turned on still. I'm looking at Vancouver, waiting for the bell to allow me to turn it on my phone, if that's. It's only good as long as the water is running, right?
Right.
So
I think the reality is there wouldn't have been enough water to put out the fire that happened in 21.
Yeah, well, that's what happened.
You have to disturb.
Up on the hill. And I lost the house across the. Yeah,
That's why I
moved
wanted
to
to
one.
have some.
I guess it was, everything was wet around there. So something might be-
But this is.
But the house probably.
This reach.
Yeah, it needs the bucket up in these hills, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you have to-
Okay, the last. We
Acceptable.
can almost for like, I got like 2 more sentences here and then we can open up some more. Let's talk. Yeah, so protecting infrastructure from climate change extremes and adapt infrastructure to climate change extremes. So, yeah. Question 18 and 19. So reconciliation and relationships. So build and strengthen relationships within their village and in the Pakmak communities. So that was highly relevant. So 23 votes for that. And work towards establishing collaborative agreements with the various communities and their respective governments. So just all around desire to come together and work for community safety, essentially, resiliency. Very good. That's kind of the end of the community conversation here. Do we have any further questions on this?
My only other comment on the sprinkler thing is the other half of the battle is won before the fire happens by having water available that can be used to keep things green, because green stuff doesn't burn, right?
Mhm.
And we have rivers here, lots of water available.
Does anyone have experience with the Thompson River takeout, like firsthand, what happened when they did, this one was on council? What happens?
Well, Jackson was husband was working on. He was the one that was lowered down into the river.
Were they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The railways, but the main thing was that the garment from the Fraser River came in more into the Thompson River that they even understood, and it shredded the pumps, the propellers.
I have a different take, but.
Yeah.
See, I've heard like a lot of different stories, I'd love to hear, but you guys, you're
It was just very expensive and it was just
Never worked. I think the engineer the day that designed it lost his license over it. For one thing.
Well, he had lost it before and then he was hired by the village and he lost it again.
But my understanding was it was founded on the pier, there was a vortex behind the pier.
Down.
And also it's most complicated. He's pretty good with machines, dials, whatever, he's most complicated. Ward he had ever had to deal with, it was over like where the hospital, where the nurse's residence was, right? But he said every time there was a gulp of air, it would shut the whole system down. Then you had to restart the system and I think it went up 4th Street. I think there's blue brooding buried in there that goes up to the reservoirs. It was just a nightmare. And then taking it in and out of the river. I don't know what you'd have to spend these days, but I look at how it was done at that time. There's no way WCB or any interior health risk organization would like do what you did.
Interior health has for
Well, I think it's just the safety factor of taking that pump in and out of the river every year, right? And then the Thompson is getting depleted. I mean, the reality is water flows are down. When I was on the GNRG, they were talking about putting in a gold mine that's gonna use 500,000 gallons of water a day in addition to Kamloops and the other mine that's up there. And their comment at that time was, there's nobody else on the Thompson water system. Well, yes, there is. There's Savinaw, there's Ashcroft, there's where's the Shindig? Washington, yeah. Spencer's Bridges, but their wells may be influenced by the flow of it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of drawers from that. And now I know in the past, along with South Thompson, some farms weren't able to get water licenses, the farms dried up. I see that those farms are now in production. So water is a scarce commodity, whether we like it or not. It's probably the most important asset in the future that we have to protect, and it's limited. Where does he, North Vancouver, is going on weekly water restrictions this week,
The
right?
province about 5 years ago came to all us residents on the Nicola River. He divided it up into 3 groups, A, B, and C, and told us if we weren't using the water, that they were ripping our water license out. Well, that's not only bad, that's great for the river, but if you're a property owner, you're a farmer, whoever the people are, and try to sell your place without a water license, it's not that easy. And I was a director and went to the powers that be, I said, you know, like, we can't do this, and they said, we have to do it because the water levels, like Jesuit said, are so low and stuff, and if you want, you know, you can have your fisheries, and you can have them, or not have your water or whatever, but it's a real problem.
One more to
I think the millionth of an inch or whatever that would lower the level of the Thompson to have people's yards green and not have houses burning down. I think that it's that's something that's a necessity if people want to continue living here and not have their stuff burned up in another 20 years or whatever.
Totally. In the past, we would watch the reservoirs. There's 3 reservoirs up there now. They're pretty big. And if it would drop below a certain level at night, then we would start putting water restrictions on it. Our philosophy was to let people water as long as they could until it became critical for fire response. Interior health used to chew on us all the time. Well, hey, people more out in the community than everyone else, but why virus when heat and wind dehydrates the landscape. And so, yeah, we need a water operator or whatever that's looking at those reservoir depths every day and then just being what we can spare so that people stay tuned.
There's also alternative landscaping ideas as well, like xeriscaping. I mean, we live in an arid climate. We didn't have rainways and things like that, right? And so there's xeriscaping and you can design your landscaping to wind walls and stuff. But just have your shrubbery away and non-combustibles and really following the fire smart principles of landscaping, but also keeping in mind the water pump station as well.
Cisterns would be nice.
I'll go Tom Creek, let's just keep running. Pull all the gravity down.
Concrete stuff like that.
Yes. It's bringing in. It's a lot closer up the top than these others. We need a whole collaborative.
It's not really here.
Kanaka, all the way to Nicolet. I'm not saying it's a big project, but that's where the benefit is up on the hill.
Just a comment on the flow of the Thompson, I think I may have little bit of expertise in that area. And it varied month by month, but overall, for example, even this year, the lower Thompson area here now, for the 1st of April, only at about 60% of normal.
Wow.
But there are other areas that like South Thompson, which are 105% of normal. So it really varies, and the amount of flow that comes past our doorstep here. It changes, but not a lot. Overall, we are very fortunate to have this river and even the big dirty one here. Doorstep. So it's we need, I'm sorry.
You need about $300 million is probably what you need.
That.
Just ball.
But it'll be cheaper to put our 6 divider town into 6 zones and have some big storage tanks up top. And we would also we'd be a model, just so you know, with people would come here just.
The Lytton watershed is good. I mean, I just see the topics as a sustainable long-term solution, and the Lytton Creek's dry.
With what I'm describing, the storage tanks would be during spring runoff.
Okay.
When the snow melts, you got an excess of water that's coming down.
So a huge reservoir.
Huge storage tanks that are feeding the community. And so by dividing it into zones, you're not depleting all of them at once.
Mhm.
You could have a storage tank for a certain zone or interconnected. And
Plus
and
the
you fill them in
delivery
the
system.
spring. Pardon?
Plus the delivery system, right? You can't put it into a potable.
No, it's not. It has to be an independent system just for this purpose.
Excellent suggestion. Excellent. I just wanted to do a quick check-in online and just, hey. Well, it's anything gravity feed and I love it, the sisters. So check in line, see if there are any questions. We do have a few folks that are online there, so.
I don't have anything in the chat, but if anyone wants to use the raise hand or to put something in the chat.
Excellent. So you guys are gonna get away that easy. So of course I said presentation questions. Now we have a few questions just to spark some conversation. We do have some flip charts here. So I'll read the questions out and if folks want to just come up, we'll continue to have some conversation here, but we could probably officially close the meeting here pretty quick. So we want your input on, what are residents' responsibility for emergency preparedness and resilience? So personal responsibility. We always hear about what are they gonna do for us? What are they gonna do for us? What have you done as an individual to be ready for the next event? What is the village's responsibility for emergency preparedness and resilience? And what is our greatest risk? How do we ensure that preparedness in addressing our greatest risks? So 5 questions. We'd love your input on, if we say this is all going to be integrated into OCP and some policy writing on behalf of the village. So we value it all, and we'll work with Maggie here to get some stuff down on the flip chart. So I'll leave the questions here. We can leave it up on the screen, but most of all, I'm so thankful for everybody coming out and joining these community conversations. They've been extremely valuable for myself and everybody involved with the village. So big Cooks gentlemen, thank you.
Maggie?
Nobody has something in chat.
There is something on the chat. So people need to continue to educate themselves. That was one comment.
Help yourself and work. Make a plate to go. Yes.
Are there any initial comments that anyone has regarding the questions?
During this, it's race company. But that's just my opinion.
Also the reason the village is here, bro.
Have anything to add? Yeah, I took it for it.
Lisa.
They let us in there for one. They all got really comfortable. Highly illegal now.
So it's.
But you know, I think the idea of being a little like the last year.
You're trying to get some.
Something. Give you some. So, but you know what?
Just see.